Tonight,
Come on!
why are the mentally unwell being locked in police cells? Many of them need psychiatric help. But the police are being left to look after them.
The police are put into a position where they have to act as mental health professionals, which is not what they've trained for.
Now one of the UK's most senior police officers tells Panorama it's got to stop.
Enough is enough. Police station cells should stop being used.
Officers on the front line agree it's not the right place for people with mental health problems.
The fact of the matter is we have somebody who's clearly unwell, who wants to end her life, and she's been brought into a police station, placed in a cell.
And with police cells in some areas routinely used, a government minister says there's desperate need for change.
Some of the care that is received by people in a moment of crisis in mental health is frankly unacceptable. And it's a national scandal.
Panorama asks, can we really continue locking up the suicidal and mentally unwell? It's the early hours of Sunday morning at Southampton Central Police Station, and a human storm is about to hit.
Sergeant, come on, you. Hello, mate. Come on. What's your name? I'm ready for you. Oh, very good. Come on.
This is Tyler.
Come on. All you. Come on. Come on.
Amazingly, it was he who called 999. Before he was brought in, Tyler thought he was about to have a turn. He couldn't get hold of the local mental health team, so he called an ambulance. Desperate for help, he shouted that he was going to kill someone. He wanted to be sectioned at the mental health unit. He didn't want to end up here.
Information from ambulance control room has telephoned them requesting an ambulance. He's been arrested on suspicion of making threats to kill.
Okay.
He was transported in the van. He was handcuffed. He sat down reasonably calmly, but as the journey progressed, he began to smash his head against the van doors. I've had to get into the cage in the back of the van with him and physically restrain him for most of the journey here.
Tyler's tried to harm himself before. He suffers from depression and says he's tried to take his own life. Complex mental health issues the police say they're not equipped to deal with. And he's been drinking too.
I sat down with my little cousin's bar open my right cell. Yeah. I've tried killing myself. I've tried hanging myself. I've jumped out of cars.
I'm telling you, stay until at least the morning because we need to get the mental health team to see you, and they won't be here till the morning.
Why?
Because they don't work at night.
Why?
In fact, mental health services here do work at night, but they're stretched, with 4 psychiatrists on call to cover large parts of Hampshire.
I want mine. Please, just take me doors, bro. I'm begging you, man.
Next morning, the storm has passed.
I just felt a bit down in the dumps, mate, like... I feel like no one's there some of the time. And I think, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just alone down there, alone, basically. And it's just a horrible feeling.
Tyler's mental health difficulties are clear. He's been self-harming.
These ones are, well, not that bad, but these ones are from a few months ago, and then these ones are like from a few days ago. Makes me feel like, right, that's it. Like, I've let it out now. Like, I'm ready, do you know what I mean? I'm ready to get on and do whatever I've got to do.
Tyler is assessed by the mental health team. By now, he's taken up several hours of police time. In the end, he's released without charge. Over the course of a week, Panorama was given rare access to the custody suite in Southampton to film its officers on the front line dealing with mental illness. On our first night in custody, there's a woman brought in for shouting and threatening someone with a piece of wood.
Get me my solicitor! Now! Get my solicitor! It's right for you, with your jobs, isn't it?
She was awake the whole night. She was agitated, clearly distressed by the whole experience of being locked in a cell.
The custody nurse has examined her. It's been decided her mental health needs outweigh any potential criminal offence.
This is the worrying time. What's she going to do next? Because she's starting to throw things around, shout and scream irrationally. Yes, we do.
They've contacted the local mental health team. Only after their assessment can she be taken out of police hands and into a special unit.
Are you expecting to do a mental health assessment this morning? Thanks for your help. Bye-bye. OK, that went straight through to the ward, actually. So she'll have been here for just over 15 hours if they come within the hour. Hello, Mark. It's at the brewery, Southampton custody.
An hour later, they still haven't arrived.
Hello, are you heading in our direction to assess this? She had got very agitated and stripped off.
Eventually, the police are so worried, they put her on one-to-one observations. More police resources swallowed up.
This is very typical of people that we see coming in here day in, day out, really.
By the time this woman's taken to the mental health unit, she's been in custody for 21 hours. Whilst we were filming, somebody who'd been arrested, but the police quickly realised had a mental health issue, they were kept in a cell for 21 hours.
And I think it really depends upon circumstances. I can't comment on individual circumstances, but
This is somebody who was in a great deal of distress, stripping off, screaming and shouting, somebody who clearly needed some mental health assistance.
Yeah, and I agree we should be responding to that as quickly as we can. We're not set up in the way a general hospital would be with an accident and emergency department that can just take people.
In the 6 days we filmed, police dealt with a range of mental illness. People who were psychotic, delusional, regular self-harmers, schizophrenic. This man looks calm when he's brought in on suspicion of theft, but he's bipolar and warns officers he's fearful of enclosed spaces. But where else can they put him? Soon, he's tied his trousers around his neck. And then, officers suddenly realise there's something else wrong. They discover he's trying to force a plastic fork down his throat.
That's taken 4 members of staff, so that's half the staff dealing with one person. And you've got potentially another 35 people.
He's later released on bail, unharmed.
It is anecdotal and it's initial research that we've been doing that 45% or almost half of people in custody have a mental health illness of some point.
Amount of people.
It is, and I think it reflects across society as a whole a hidden illness that mental health problems are across society.
Like I've said.
So you've got £1.96 with you? All your jewellery, your phone and your keys.
And it's not just in custody suites. Police estimate that across the country, around 20% of all their time is spent dealing with the mentally unwell, and at a time when budgets are being cut. Some of the people held in police custody are not suspected of committing a crime at all. They're suicidal. This woman, the police say, contacted mental health services saying she wanted to jump from a bridge. They weren't able to go and get her. Someone has to, so it's the police again.
The officers that found her liaised through our control room to the main sort of centre for mental health in Southampton, and they were informed that it was too full this morning, so she had to come into our custody.
There's been no crime. They're holding her under a temporary section because they suspect she's mentally unwell. It's called a Section 136. Someone detained under a 136 should only be taken to a police station in exceptional circumstances, and they should be assessed by a mental health professional within 3 hours. PC Ron Richards has been tasked with looking after this woman in the meantime.
I've been sat there on a chair with her for the last 2 hours talking to her, trying to keep her calm. Hopefully we've had a bit of rapport. I mean, now the doctors have come out, they're going to assess her.
All he can do is wait. And PC Richards, like his colleagues, says he's not fully trained to deal with a suicidal person.
About 20% of incidents that we go to have some sort of mental health. We don't really get a lot of training in it, in all honesty.
And there are growing strains on the system. Panorama asked 52 mental health trusts in England about the number of unexpected deaths of mental health patients. The results suggest an increase of about 25% in the last 5 years. Experts believe the recession is to blame, and it means more pressure on the health service and on the police.
Hi there, it's BTP. We've got one under arrest. You might need a bit of a welcoming committee, this one.
And whilst people with mental health issues wait, day and night, the cells around them fill up with suspected criminals.
Bushman! Don't call me that, mate. We're going to have a bundle in a minute and you're not going to like it. Right.
Case after case is brought in. He's not mentally ill, but he's angry and unpredictable, and he's in the mix too. It's an intimidating atmosphere for anyone, let alone those with a mental illness.
As you can see, his behaviour has set somebody off up, so he's now banging. If you throw into the mix somebody who's got mental health issues, who's not particularly well, not feeling particularly great, you put them in the same block with the banging, all the noise. It's not really good for them. It's not ideal for them.
Over the last 4 years, the Southern Health NHS Trust says an increasing number of people sectioned under 136 have been taken into their care. Even so, last year, about 500 were detained in police cells. And that's just a fraction of the number of mentally unwell people police say they have to deal with. They've just picked up another woman believed to be suicidal and brought her in on a 136. They phoned the mental health team.
She's made several attempts to kill herself and has...
At the moment, it seems they can't come and assess her.
That wasn't a particularly easy phone call. The fact of the matter is we have somebody who's clearly unwell. She wants to end her life. And she's been brought into a police station, placed in a cell, which just isn't the appropriate place for her.
The mental health team has arrived for the woman who threatened to throw herself from a bridge. It's taken about 3 hours, right on the cusp of what guidelines say is acceptable. But why are people like her ending up here in the first place?
There are not enough beds for patients that the police present to mental health units.
How do we know that?
Because we're continually being rejected. That we're continually being told that there isn't space, there isn't room in mental health units.
Panorama has been given access to the acute psychiatric unit in Southampton, which the police regularly deal with. It's called Antelope House. The first patient we meet is Simon.
I was going to jump off the Walston Bridge.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you really intend to?
Yeah, 100%.
Why?
I was going. I had enough of life. And I had a lot of problems.
For the last 2 years, he suffered from depression and has himself ended up in police cells.
Since I've been unwell for 2 years, I've been picked up about 7 times. Always under the Mental Health Act.
And what do they do with you?
They take me to the police station, lock me up for a day. And
what's that like?
Horrible. One time I was punching the wall for the whole time I was there. And that was hours.
He takes us to his room. It's a room for recovery, not for a suspected criminal. compare this to police cells.
So there's no toilet seat and there's no taps?
No.
So there's nothing hard to harm yourself with, yeah?
No, there's nothing at all. There's not. You can't even fill the basin up and drown yourself. But that's one thing I thought I'd do on the first day. These are the rubber hooks.
And why are these rubber?
Because they were solid, you could hang yourself on it. There's nothing, they've designed it for someone in my boat.
Yeah.
Beds in a unit like this cost around £300 a day. The number of adult acute beds provided by the mental health service in this area has fallen by 38% in the past 5 years. And a Freedom of Information request from Panorama to 52 mental health trusts in England suggests that adult acute beds have been cut by around 17%. Even so, the boss here says bed reductions are not to blame for people ending up in the cells.
It is not necessarily the case that someone who's in a police station, even if they're expressing suicidal thoughts, would end up in a bed. Actually, a very small proportion of people who are detained by the police end up in hospital. And we would always try to support people to stay at home.
And to show us beds aren't always the answer, they had someone else for us to meet. Kaylee is preparing for a night out. She looks like she doesn't have a care in the world. But even leaving her home is a small triumph.
Oh, I missed you.
Kaylee is supported by a psychiatric nurse. She lives with a boyfriend, holds down a job, and she's no burden to the police.
I've just been feeling really anxious about situations, and because I'm very vulnerable at the minute, I'm kind of isolating myself to stay indoors and been making myself quite unwell. I had a bit of an unsteady night Saturday night, and I had nightmares again, and I didn't sleep very well. So I know that I was heading for a bad day.
Instead of being an inpatient, she visits a unit in Andover each week and receives therapy.
Has there been any incidents of self-harm or...?
High urges of suicide.
Okay.
I don't always feel like I'm good enough to just have a good day.
What would happen if you hadn't got this? If you hadn't got Liz and this place that you come?
I wouldn't be here.
Okay.
I think it's so hard to live with something that it's not a visual thing. People don't see it, and people can meet you every day and they think that you're just okay. And there's nothing worse than feeling like you don't belong anywhere.
For Kaylee, this kind of care works. But for some, a bed in the unit seems the only answer. And the longer they need it, the more chance of congestion in the system. Simon is still too ill to go home.
The last week I've had a big dip. I wanted to get out of here and go to the bridge and jump off it. When it comes, it just eats me and takes over.
Over the next few weeks, he recovers and prepares for life outside. If he leaves too soon, he could end up back in the hands of the police again. At first, he's just allowed out for a walk to the shops to see how he copes.
I do feel anxious.
Why?
For other people.
You want to speed up, don't you, and get in there? I can tell. You all right?
Yeah, I just get what I need. I don't need the papers. I just want to buy a scratch card. Can I have a number 1 and a number 3, please?
You're looking a bit shaky.
Yeah, I am.
Right. You feel better now?
Now I'm out of that shop, yeah.
That was quite unusual. There was suddenly a lot of people in there, weren't there?
Yeah, I don't like the shop experience.
2 weeks later, Simon is ready to leave, but his accommodation falls through and he's forced to stay in the unit. More congestion.
This is one of the blockages, isn't it, in the system that Hampshire Police, we see them experiencing, if you like.
It is absolutely part of the blockage. Ensuring that there is appropriate housing with support so that people can get out of hospital into appropriate care is critical to provide good quality care.
Southampton Custody, how can I help?
While some can't move on from the mental health unit, it seems others can't get in. Meet David, in a police cell for punching someone in the street.
He's probably the only one you need to worry about, and he is an alcoholic. He's on various meds. There's a great big bag of meds in his box. He's just on 30s at the moment.
30s means he has to be checked every 30 minutes. David has got like this because he can't see his daughter. He's angry and drunk.
What you can do to make me feel better is maybe speak to my daughter, but I'm not going to do that, am I? I'll beat myself up in this cell, watch me. Okay. No, you want to speak to me?
And then he carries out his threat.
He's got quite a history of self-harming, mental health issues. Yeah. Now he's self-harming again by headbutting the door, punching the walls, punching the door. So we've had to call a nurse out for him because he's bleeding from the head.
They can't question him when he's in this condition.
Hello again, mate. You need to have a look at your head first of all.
David was released the next day and later pleaded guilty to assault. A couple of weeks after, I went to meet him.
I've just been walking around for about 2-3 months, just crying on anyone and everyone's shoulder. Yeah, women, man, child, you know what I mean?
David was becoming seriously unwell just weeks before he was arrested.
So I'll cut that open.
What were you trying to do? Were you trying to kill yourself?
I was at the time, yeah. Yeah, I was.
David needed surgery on his wrists. He was lined up for a stay in the mental health unit, but says he had to wait almost 2 weeks for a bed to become available. Then he walked out after just 3 hours, something he still regrets.
The very next day I was in hospital again, getting myself glued up, stitched up.
What, because you cut yourself as soon as you left there?
Yeah. The mental health team came out, sorry Dave, we can't help you because you drink.
Mental health issues can often be complicated by addiction, and the minister says more should be done to address that.
To compartmentalise someone's condition, whether it's alcohol or drug addiction, without recognising the rest of their condition, perhaps acute mental health challenges, is completely the wrong way to do it. There needs to be a joined-up service.
David had self-harmed and attempted suicide several times after not being allowed to see his daughter. Evidence of his mental health issues are there for anyone to see.
Punch the walls, just go mad, go crying.
That is a proper solid wall. This isn't wood, this is...
No, it's proper wall.
What makes you do that?
It's when I get down, get upset. This is just from like when I cut my wrists and stuff and then I'll just go to sleep and stuff like that.
You're joking, that is through cutting your wrists. Southern Health say they don't discuss individual cases, but say their acute inpatient units are not specialist alcohol services, although they do sometimes admit people with alcohol problems if they occur alongside significant mental illness. What we saw during our 6 days in Southampton Police Station is repeated to varying degrees in many parts of the country. Now, a senior police officer has told Panorama it's got to stop.
I think as long as there's an option to have a police station cell as a backup, then they will always be used. And I think until you get to the stage where you actually say, no, enough is enough, then police station cells should stop being used.
Have we come to that point?
I think we have. If there are no spaces at a mental health unit, then my belief is that an accident emergency unit at a local hospital must be a better place than a police station.
That shocks some mental health professionals.
And by a hospital, does she mean a general hospital?
Yes.
Because I think I would have real concerns about whether a general hospital would be a place of safety for somebody in those circumstances.
It shouldn't be about police just saying, we're going to just take them, march them into an A&E department and abdicate our responsibility. That's not the right way. It should be police, together with mental health, reaching a conclusion about what is in that patient's best interests.
This is the kind of thing he's talking about. A police response car with a difference. On board is a psychiatric nurse. It's a pilot scheme in Leicestershire to reduce the numbers of people police need to detain on a temporary section, a 136. This way, they're taking the diagnosis onto the streets.
You've got a grateful incident, suicidal female with a wrap around her neck and she's tied to the bed. Caller is hysterical in the background.
The caller is 20 miles away and they need the mental health nurse there fast. When they arrive, the woman's already removed the cord from her neck and seems calm.
When you tied the cord earlier, was that to alleviate the distress, or was that actually an attempt to kill yourself?
I didn't really think it through, to be honest. I just did it. There was no kind of... I wouldn't have been bothered if I hadn't done it.
On hearing that, a police officer might have thought she was at serious risk of harm, but the mental health practitioner judges she's out of the danger zone. They put her in contact with a GP and leave.
That saved an ambulance crew coming out here, conveying to hospital, potentially police officers sitting with her at the hospital until she's been seen to ensure that nothing else happens.
It's been tried in Hampshire too, and there are plans to use it further. Leicestershire police say they've reduced the number of Section 136s by 40% since the trial started in January. It's what the minister wants to see rolled out across the country, because he says what's happening in police cells is evidence that mentally unwell people are being failed.
Some of the care that is received by people in a moment of crisis in mental health is frankly unacceptable. And it's a national scandal that needs to be addressed.
For now, Tyler's getting on well. So too is David. But for them and others held in cells across the country, more needs to be done to better support mentally unwell people in crisis. If scenes like you've witnessed tonight are to end anytime soon.